Thanks for joining us for City Council Comments. I'm Steve Erickson along with Council Member Wade Demmer. Today we're talking about both the September 7th and our September 21st council meeting. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Now that we're, on the second day of fall now, I think, right?
Oh man,
Officially?
we're at another equinox already.
We did. But you know what? This year it's been kind of nice because it seems like we're actually getting some fall weather. Last year we jumped right from summer to winter, it seemed like.
I was going to ask you if we could do this outside today. It's just beautiful.
It is a beautiful day. All right, before we jump into the items on our council agenda, we had a little bit of news that you reported at the meeting. This is was your last meeting.
Yeah, it sure looks that way. We've been in our house in Coon Rapids for 20 years, and we found a new house in Coon Rapids, but it's just across the border. I represent Ward 3. You have to live in Ward 3 to represent Ward 3. I'll be moving into Ward 4, and so that would open up a vacancy, and I would not be able to finish out my term, which is definitely a tough situation, because it's been such a great experience, but there are some family dynamics that really made the move make a lot of sense. And we're going to be really excited to get the new house and to stay in Coon Rapids.
Yeah, and at least you know your new ward representative, so that's a bonus.
Poor Jenny.
All the calls she's going to get now. Well, we're sad to see you go. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of the show about it, but that was an item that was not on the agenda, but certainly noteworthy here.
Yeah, like I said, it's been a great experience, and we'll talk more at the end.
All right. Well, we'll jump into our September 21st meeting. One of the first items there, we had a swearing in of a new police officer. We've had quite a few of these in recent months.
Yeah, it's been good. We've been replenishing our police officer ranks. Real credit to the entire department because it's really hard to find police officers right now, as basically every police department is struggling to keep its ranks. But our training program's been really good. There hasn't been any drop in the quality of candidates. And I think the culture in the Coon Rapids Police Department is one that police officers are attracted to, and the kind of police officers that we're proud to have in the city. So it's really been great to see them able to keep filling the roles with good, strong officers.
All right. In this case, it's Tyler Soini is the new officer. His wife pinned on his new badge, and he's looking forward to getting started here. They go through a lengthy field training process, so he's done that now, graduated, and will be on patrol now.
And I'm always glad when the badge pinning doesn't draw blood. It's always like that.
Yes. So it wasn't a kid this time. The kid one was a little scary a couple meetings ago. All right. Well, we welcome Tyler aboard to the police department. Moving forward, on a related topic here, Council adopted a resolution accepting a DWI grant from the state of Minnesota. This is something we did also last year.
Yeah, that's right. So we have our standing police force that we pay for with levy dollars, but then we're able to get additional police members via grants like this. So this is a police officer full position that's paid for by the state as long as the job is DWI enforcement, which, obviously in a city of our size, there's plenty of work for a full-time officer for DWI enforcement and reduction. So that's great. So we basically, it's almost like a police officer that we get for free, in that we get it from state money instead of from the city budget.
All right. And so their primary responsibility is to patrol for DWI-related laws and offenses.
Yeah, and DWI reduction as well, which, obviously even better than arresting someone with just not having him be on the road in the first place.
Yeah. All right. Council also considered a water emergency. This is an item that's been on the agenda for every meeting now while it's in place, and it continues for now.
And it has been getting better. We have had a little bit of rain recently. The trouble is those little bits of rain, while they might mean you can't have a picnic that day, they don't replenish an entire summer's worth of loss of water. So it's still continuing for a bit longer. Don't know when exactly things will end, but these are those restrictions on even odd watering and time of day watering. So no change. We're going to continue that for the time being. Part of this too is at a DNR level. We are still considered in a drought. So not quite time to pull those restrictions back, although it was a reminder that if you do have new grass seed, you do get an exception for things like that where you're trying to get the lawn to take.
Okay. And they're also wrapping up a project on the East Water Treatment Plant, which kind of brought some of that water level down this summer. Not a great timing, but they had to get that done. So that I imagine that's done soon. So the current restrictions are no watering every day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the odd even sprinkling ban has been extended. That normally is done August 31st, but it has been extended indefinitely. So odd numbered homes ending in an odd number can water on odd days. And then even-numbered homes watered on even-numbered calendar days.
That's right. So just no change from what's been going on.
Yeah, and it'll be on our next agenda again. All right. Council considered adoption of an ordinance, amending the solar ordinance and also amending the definitions ordinance. So 2 different ordinances here.
Yeah, and when you look back at what our solar ordinance was, I think the last one was 2014, so right around the time I was getting on the council. The availability of the technology in solar has just changed so much since then. And so, what's allowed, what looks nice, what you can do with solar has changed so much that our ordinance really did need a refresh. This one looks pretty future looking as well. It even includes things that are kind of in those early research and development phases, like windows that are solar power generating count up in a that's just part of your house, then it's allowed. We've added language for solar gardens at very large lot sizes, expanded a little bit what you're allowed to do at your own house, expanded what businesses are allowed to do. Really, most of this is keeping up with the technology and keeping up with what other cities do. We do kind of have a metric in Coon Rapids that we don't really want to find out that our neighboring cities let residents do things that Coon Rapids doesn't let the residents do. So these situations where we want to make sure we're at least as able to do things as our neighboring communities, that just makes a lot of sense to update the resolution when that goes on.
All right. And there's obviously been a big push in recent years towards sustainable living and that sort of thing. I know we have a sustainability coordinator that was added last year that's monitoring more of this now too, around projects and all of that. So solar will be allowed, and this also allows for solar gardens, correct?
That's right. That's that larger plot size. I think it was a 20-acre cutoff. That above 20 acres, there's sort of different rules than below. The other thing we did is in this one we authorized a summary publication. So just a highlights of what's going on should be in the newspaper here soon. Obviously, if someone has any questions about what they can put on their house or what they can put in their yard or any of those, do contact the city, and you're gonna find out exactly what the new rules are and what's allowed for your house, and take care of any permitting that might apply. But we're here to answer those sort of questions.
All right. Council authorized a new audit firm. This doesn't sound very exciting on the surface, but it's something that we're required to do every so many years, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And the audit firm, we say it's new, but it's been forever that people have had a lack of trust in government, right? There's taxes collected, and then people want to know where it goes. And one of the real functions is we have an audit that happens to make sure that the dollars are going where we say they are, and the auditors have given us clean reports for years now. But one of our policies is not to use the same auditor for too many years in a row, and this is that same sort of trust and transparency. If you have the same auditor for 20 years, people start to question whether you've gotten too cozy with your auditor. Right. So we have a policy of changing every 6 years. We actually didn't change in our 6th year because of COVID, so we were 1 year overdue to change, so we knew we definitely had to change this year. Put out an open bid, got references, and have a new firm coming on to do the audits. And again, the point of this is so that the residents know that they can trust the city when the city says this is what we're doing with the money. All
right. Moving forward, Council, there was 2 different resolutions amending the Stormwater Drainage Fund as well as the Capital Equipment Fund budget. We wanted to talk about this because this is something that is impacting folks out there, and this relates to the used car market being heavily inflated.
Yeah, and the new car market as well.
That's
With
true.
the chip shortage, we can build the cars, but they can't have their
Yeah.
computers. City vehicles are usually at least somewhat customized, and quite frankly, when supply chains get tight, the customized stuff isn't what people build first. They're trying to make sure the mass market stuff gets built. So we have two different vehicles here that were needed based on replacement of old vehicles, and one of them, for example, they wanted to get a 2021, and there were none. So then they had to put in the order for a brand new 2022,
Yeah.
which even that they won't be able to get for months and months. And by the time they were able to get one, the only one they were able to get was a four-wheel drive instead of a two-wheel drive, which does increase the purchase price. It also increases the resale price. But the long and short of it is we ended up having to spend, probably $10,000 plus per vehicle more than we had budgeted based on the budget from last year. And so like everybody else, we're trying to figure out, when do these things go back to normal, and how do we delay purchases we can delay, and what do we absolutely need to buy and maybe pay a little more for, and then what budget does it come out of to try to make sure that you're not taking money you don't have. And one thing that's lucky there is some of these capital funds do have a little extra, because this does happen where you're trying to buy something, it turns out to be more expensive. It doesn't usually happen twice in the same meeting,
Right.
but that's the state of that market.
Yeah, a lot of the car dealerships are struggling to keep inventory, or you're used to having a lot of inventory. If you drive by, I know Mauer, Maine, if you drive by that lower end where they used to have cars stacked, it's like hardly any cars in that field.
Yeah, and the ones they do, they're not the specialized. They're the ones that they sell, the most of.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Yep,
well,
exactly
let's
right.
hope the chip shortage ends soon, and
Right.
things will correct themselves eventually here.
That's right. Or we all have to go back to driving without our digital music streaming, one of the two.
That's true. That is true. All right. Council adopted a resolution approving basically the preliminary 22 tax levy, setting that for next year.
Yeah, and this is a really important step. This is the step where you set this is as much as the levy can be.
Mm-hmm.
So we work through the whole budget and figure out where things have to go up, where things can go down, and we ended up and it's actually good to talk about the same time as we talk about swearing in new police officers.
Yeah.
The largest line item in our budget is personnel, and the largest line item in the personnel is public safety. So while crime has been decreasing in Coon Rapids for over 20 years, and actually decreasing faster than it's been decreasing state or nationwide, which again, people don't realize this, per capita crime has been on the decrease for decades, and in Coon Rapids even faster. The call volume has been going up over that same period, and it's not crime that's driving the call volume. It's a lot of medical care, falls, needing to help people. And so the police are the fastest on the scene. They've got the defibrillators, all those things. But it does put a tax on the police officers. They have to do all that response. And so we've been hiring more police officers, keeping our force strong, plus adjusting pay to make sure we match the market and don't lose police officers to other cities. And so because of that, the levy does go up. There's only so much you can cut when your largest line item is going up.
Right.
So the levy this year, last year we held it to under 1% increase by pushing off some purchases. So there was concern that this year it would be a really large increase. Actually, thanks to some of the federal money, we were able to get it back a little bit lower to more of an average size increase. So it's a little under 5%, about 4.5%, which, again, I get that a 4.5% increase on taxes sounds big. If you're someone who's paying $500 in property taxes, that makes it $520 in property taxes. But again, where's that money going, right? That money is going to our Department of Public Safety, these calls to make sure people are getting service when they have emergencies. This is the balance you have to strike in government, and we all wish we could increase the service while keeping the levy flat. I think everyone would like to do that, and instead you end up with really tough calls to make. I still feel pretty good about the fact that over a 2-year period we're keeping it at an average of under 3%, given the cost of living increases over those time periods. That's a pretty conservative budget increase while trying to keep the services the same or better.
All right. And part of the levy increase, like you said, cost of living increases, but there is one new police officer position in next year's budget and one new firefighter as well. And again, this goes to the whole call volume issue.
Right. And because our firefighters also have seen an increasing call volume despite fewer fires. So sort of the same story. And then, so this is the preliminary levy. This gets sent out in your truth in taxation. You will see an increase in your taxes. It may not be 4.5%.
Right.
And I always try to remind people that it's pretty complicated how any one individual person's taxes change. But if your home value has gone up a ton, your taxes are going to go up more. Someone else's home value went up a little or stayed the same. Their taxes actually can go down, even though the increase we set across the entire city is that 4.5%.
Yeah.
Plus you've got the school district and you've got the county. And so you end up with a number that, quite frankly, I have no idea what any individual person's number is going to be. Yeah. What I know is if you were paying $500 to the city, that the $522 was because of what we just did. Yeah. Yours might be less than $522. It might be more than $522 because it all ends up being based on your home value and some of those other factors.
Which we know have shot up big time in the last year. So it will be interesting when people get their statements, and some of that might not happen this year. It might be the values might not catch up till the following year. But in any case, the truth and taxation statements go out. The county mails those out in November, just before Thanksgiving. So that'll give you a preliminary look at what your taxes might look like next year, and then all 3 jurisdictions adopt their budgets and set their levies in December. And then again, you'll get your eventual actual correct tax statement in the spring.
And then we have the big truth and taxation meeting, and again, you can lower the levy still. You just can't raise it. So whatever number we have, that's the most it's going to be.
Yep.
I think with the amount of work that went into the budgeting, it's probably going to be that. They found some last-minute things they were able to cut.
I was going to say, there was cuts from the preliminary budget, correct? Because it was over 6% at one point.
There was a lot that had to be done. And I think that if it weren't for some of those federal programs coming in, it would have been very hard to keep it under 5%.
All right. Well, again, we'll have more on that in the coming months here as the final budget and levy are adopted. That's all we had for our September 21st meeting. Going back to our first meeting of the month, which happened September 7th, we had a proclamation off the top there declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah, of course, that's a topic that, these uncomfortable topics are the ones you kind of need to talk about, even though you don't want to talk about it. Alexandra House has been really our partner in helping with dealing with victims of domestic violence. We use them. They provide services when especially when a police call happens and somebody needs a place to be. And it's just been a really great partnership with them. And so this is a good reminder, if anyone's in a situation that is a dangerous situation, there are resources out there, and I'd strongly suggest reaching out to Alexandra House or the police department as well, or anyone else you feel comfortable reaching out to, because obviously no one should have to live in a situation like that. And so that's what these awareness proclamations are about, is making sure these things get talked about and people hear what the resources are.
All right, and there's lots of ways to help. You can donate to the Alexander House. They also have a couple events during the year. They have one coming up here, their big one. Their Hope Fest is taking place Saturday, September 25th, so a couple days from this taping, at the Anoka City Hall Plaza. I believe that's in the morning. So alexanderhouse.org is their website if you want more information about that event or their services or other ways to help out and donate.
That's right.
All right. Moving along here, we want to move to a site plan that was approved for a 12,000 square foot office building at Holly Street and Springbrook Drive. This is basically right next to the Quick Trip there.
Yeah, there's that empty lot next to the Quick Trip, and the building going in, they're talking about a dialysis clinic. These sort of things don't normally have to come to council because planning can take care of them, but in this case it was, they needed an exemption because our plan says that you have to have so many windows, and then it's fairly obvious that when you're building a medical clinic, maybe not quite so many windows is a reasonable flexibility to grant. So, you put the rules that you want to be generally followed, and then you allow flexibility when it makes sense.
Yeah. Is this because it's part of in a port?
There's some overlays going on there with Port Evergreen, and then it's right next to Coon Rapids. It's visible from Coon Rapids Boulevard, and there's just some of these places get a little bit complicated with the number of rules, and so then that's where it's nice to have both the Planning Commission and the City Council be able to say, all right, let's just back up. Why were these rules here? Does it apply to this type of building? And be flexible with things that make sense.
All right. Well, nice to see our medical community keep building up. We've got quite a bit of buildings here and more coming.
That's right.
All right. Council adopted an ordinance, or adopted a resolution rather, approving the 2021 Police Sergeants Labor Agreement. We kind of covered this already about the pay, but the pay for officers, it has been going up because the market is so competitive.
Right, and this is sort of, I believe, the last one of the string where we get the pay with the rank and file via the union and that negotiation, and then you do the sergeants afterward. And again, what we found was that we did not want to fall behind competitive cities, and so there was a raise in addition to other negotiations that occurred. So pretty standard negotiations for salaries. Always a difficult thing because you always want to keep the price low for the taxpayer, but you always want to keep the value high for the taxpayer. And in this case, this is what the negotiation came out with.
All right, and this is the contract for 2021. Now they'll moving right into probably bargaining for 2022.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Council adopted a resolution establishing the 2021-2022 Coon Rapids Ice Center rental rates, and also approved the Ice Center user contracts. There were no big changes here.
No big changes. There's a couple line items that went up by $5. There might have been one that went up by 10. But this is how we rent with the major groups like Blue Ox and some of the other groups that use Power Edge, maybe even the high school, and just ice time always gets more expensive because energy always gets more expensive, and so it's something where every year it goes up a few bucks, and it did that again this year.
All right. So that is all the items we wanted to talk about on our two agendas here. Back to what we were discussing at the top.
Yeah.
You leaving, so that was your last council meeting. This is your last council comments. How you feeling about leaving?
Of all the ironies, we're moving on to Bittersweet Street, and
in Ward 4.
In Ward 4.
Not Ward 3.
Not the Ward 3 side.
Which is why you have to basically resign.
Yeah, so very excited for the new house. We had moved in, I bought my house from my grandma who moved into the cooperative in Coon Rapids. We'd planned on it being a starter home, and then we had kids, and then the recession hit, and then we kind of got, I don't want to say stuck, but we stayed in our home rather than overextending.
Yeah.
And so it's a starter home we've been in 20 years. And so we're excited to take that next step. I wish it were in Ward 3. Being on City Council, I'll say I feel like I learned so much about how government really does work. In many ways, your elected officials aren't your government. Your government are the people who work 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever, long hours, trying to keep the city running and putting together the plans and figuring out, this road looks good now, but it'll fall apart in 2 years, so I better get it on the plan so that we fix it before it falls apart so that I feel invisible, right? So many times, there's so many people working in a way that you never see or feel because stuff is just working. and you drive over one rough road, and you don't think, wow, that's amazing. I've driven over 100 smooth roads today. You think, what's wrong with this road?
Exactly.
Right? And so that battle of how unappreciated I think sometimes, these jobs are, where you look at snow plowing, you couldn't live in Minnesota without that. You can't live in Minnesota without the inspectors making sure that your insulation is to the right R value. All these little things behind the scenes that I got to see. And then we serve so much as an oversight board to make sure that they're in touch with what the citizens want and what the residents are willing to spend tax money on. That partnership, it's been really interesting to watch, because perfect agreement would be really bad news. You don't want your oversight board to perfectly agree. But overall, the data that they've given, the information they've given, the understanding, and hopefully then we give back to them the perspective of the residents. I can't thank enough the people I've run into across the city. I wish everybody could get this sort of experience, and I think most people, if they wanted to, could. I think that there are commissions, there are volunteer groups, there's all sorts of ways to get a touch point into your local government, to do some civic improvement. I will try very hard to find a good civic improvement fit that isn't city council going forward. Maybe there's a board that I can jump in and continue to help, because like a lot of things, it takes a lot of your time. When you're doing it, sometimes it feels like a drag, but when you look back and you say, I think over that time period, positive things happened, and I think I was a part of some positive things that happened. It's hard to just walk away from that entirely.
Yeah. And your family was here for your final meeting.
Yeah.
And you guys posed with the street sign you got that said Demmer Lane.
Yeah, that was such a nice touch. Something that I know they've done for outgoing council before, but normally they do it after an election, or and so in the middle of the term. I thought that was really, really thoughtful. I will have to proudly hang my Coon Rapids street sign somewhere, maybe in the new house. And it was great to have my family there. I know they have had a lot of nights where I wasn't home to help cook, or I wasn't home to help watch, or I wasn't home to help whatever. And they had to take care of a lot of Tuesdays without me. So maybe before I sign up for any new commissions, I should spend a few Tuesdays at home. Yeah,
that might be good. Give it a little break first. All right. Anything else you want to add before you go?
No, it's been a humbling honor and privilege to serve the residents, whether it's in a meeting or in someone's backyard or on TV. And I hope people look and say that they think I did my best. And now it's someone else's turn, and I hope that person does their best.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we sure enjoyed working with you, and you will certainly be missed.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Thanks for being here today for your final council comments. Thank you at home for watching. Hopefully not your final council comments, because we'll be back here again after our 2 meetings in October.